Welcome back to another spine-chilling episode of Shell's Spooky Stories. I'm your host, and tonight we have a story that will make you think twice about where you choose to spend your evenings. So dim the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself for the graveyard's grasp. It was a cool autumn evening in the small town of Millbrook. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of winter. For 5 teenagers, Mike, Sarah, Jason, Emma and Kevin, it was just a Friday night, but one that would change their lives forever. Mike, the self-appointed leader of the group, had been regaling them with stories about the old Millbrook Cemetery at the edge of town. Rumours had circulated for years about strange occurrences there, whispers in the night, shadowy figures moving between the graves, and an oppressive feeling of being watched. Come on, guys, it'll be an adventure. We'll finally see if those stories are true. I don't know, Mike. My grandmother always said to be respectful of the dead and leave the resting places alone, said Sarah. Think of the footage we could get. It'll be epic on my YouTube channel, Jason said enthusiastically. I have a bad feeling about this. Maybe we should just go to the movies instead, said Emma. Oh, come on, Emma. Don't be such a scaredy cat. It's just an old graveyard, Kevin said dismissively. Despite Emma and Sarah's reservations, the group found themselves piling into Mike's beaten-up Chevy, the excitement of potential danger overriding their better judgment. As they drove towards the outskirts of town, the streetlights decreased and the shadows grew longer. The Millbrook Cemetery came into view, a sprawling expanse of weathered tombstones and ancient trees. The old iron fences surrounded the property, its paint peeling and rusted. The gate creaked ominously as Mike pushed it open. All right, guys, let's do this, said Mike. They stepped into the graveyard, the beam of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air seemed to grow colder, and an eerie silence fell over them, broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. Jason pulled out his camera, eager to capture anything unusual. This is going to be gold for my channel, he muttered, panning across the sea of tombstones. As they ventured deeper into the cemetery, the atmosphere grew heavier. Emma shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. Emma, guys, I really don't like this. It feels wrong. Kevin rolled his eyes, but even he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over the group. They passed by ornate mausoleums and symbol headstones, some so old the inscriptions had worn away. Suddenly Sarah stopped in her tracks, her eyes wide with fear. Did you hear that? The others paused, straining their ears. At first, there was nothing but the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Then faintly they heard it, a whisper, barely audible, seeming to come from all around them. It's just the wind, guys. Come on, let's keep going, said Mike. But as they pressed on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Words began to form, though they couldn't quite make them out. The temperature dropped further, and their breath was visible in the cold air. They came to a clearing where a particularly large ornate tombstone stood. The name had long since eroded away, but there was something about it that drew them in. Let's sit here and tell ghost stories. See who can last the longest without getting scared, Mike challenged them. Reluctantly, the group settled in a circle around the tombstone. One by one, they shared tales of horror and supernatural, each story adding to the growing sense of dread. As Kevin began his story, the final one of the night, a strange mist began to form around their feet. There's a legend about this graveyard. They say that on nights like this, when the veil between the worlds is thin, the spirits of the restless dead reach out to the living. The mist thickened, swirling around them. Emma clutched Sarah's arm, her eyes wide with terror. And if you're not careful, if you disrespect their resting place, they'll drag you down into the grave, never to be seen again. As the last words left Kevin's mouth, Sarah let out a blood-curdling scream. The group watched in horror as she was suddenly pulled down onto the grave, her body sinking into the earth as if it had turned into quicksand. Sarah! Oh God, Sarah! Mike panicked. They scrambled to grab her, pulling with all their might, but it felt as though something was pulling back, something strong. and determined to drag Sarah into the depths. Jason, still filming, captured the terrifying scene. Through the camera's night vision, shadowy figures could be seen reaching up from the ground, their spectral hands grasping at Sarah. With a final desperate heave, they managed to pull Sarah free. She lay on the ground, gasping and sobbing, covered in dirt and leaves. "It was real. They tried to take me. I felt their hands." The group stood in stunned silence, the reality of what just happened sinking in. The whisper had grown to a crescendo, filling the air around them. "We need to get out of here now." They ran, half carrying Sarah, their feet pounding on the uneven ground. The whispers followed them, growing angry and insistent. Shadows seemed to move between the graves, reaching out as they passed. As they neared the gate, Kevin glanced back. What he saw made his blood run cold. A mass of shadowy figures was pursuing them, their forms flickering and wavering like smoke. "Don't look back, just run." They burst through the gates, piling into Mike's car. As they sped away, they could see in the rearview mirror the shadows stopped at the cemetery's edge, unable to follow them. The following days were a blur of sleepless nights and constant fear. They tried to rationalise what had happened, but Jason's footage left no doubt. Something supernatural had occurred in that graveyard. Sarah was the most affected. She would wake up screaming, feeling phantom hands trying to drag her down. The others weren't much better off, jumping at shadows and unable to shake the feeling of being watched. They never returned to Millbrook Cemetery, and whenever they passed it, they would cross to the other side of the street, refusing to look at the old rusted gate. The memory of that night remained with them, a chilling reminder of the unseen forces that linger in the shadows. Years later, they would occasionally bring up the incident, each retelling, sharpening the fear they had felt. They'd moved on with their lives, but the graveyard's grasp never truly left them. So next time you find yourself drawn to a place of eternal rest, remember this tale. Some places are better off left undisturbed, for you never know what might be waiting in the dark, ready to reach out and pull you into the earth. Thank you for joining me on this terrifying tale. It's a chilling reminder to respect the places where the dead rest, for the line between our worlds and the next is thinner than we might think. Until next time, stay safe and keep your lights on. If you have a ghost story you'd like to share, please send it to us at shellspookystories@yahoo.com. Your story could be featured in one of our episodes. Sweet dreams and beware of the shadows.